I spent 5 years as the executive director of a territorial social organization here in the NWT. And the passion that Arlene shows in her voice, I mean, when you work day to day, it's very hard not to be, because all these policies affect people on such elemental day-to-day parts of their lives. Alternatives North kind of contrasts with that. It's not a service organization. It's quite a bit different. We're a social justice coalition. So we're made up of people from other organizations like the Center for Northern Families and the YWCA, and environmental groups, as well as individuals. And we have no staff. We're volunteer run and operated. One of our strengths is, I guess, that we meet weekly at lunch hours on Wednesdays. So we maintain some momentum in terms of action. We don't do any service delivery. We tend to do research, and Arlene, obviously is right that getting money to do research is problematic. We tend to not get big pots of money generally, except perhaps more recently as an intervener at environmental impact hearings. We've managed to get some larger pots of money for socioeconomic research generally in relationship to consideration of the Mackenzie gas project and currently the reclamation of Giant Mine. A lot of work happens just in-house by volunteers, a lot of really good work. We tend to work on whatever the people at the table want to work on and that they are passionate about. We tend to do a lot of work around information sharing through our website, email list, events, partnerships, and we are very attentive to results as opposed to organizational structures. And we also try to make connections between all of the issues that face people in the NWT, so certainly environmental and socioeconomic issues. So we had done a number of smaller projects. We got a little bit of money from unions for a survey of childcare workers in the NWT that showed huge gaps in services and training for childcare workers. We had participated on a volunteer basis with another, $2,000 or $3,000 of some union money on a review of the social or the income security programs that the GNWT undertook some years ago. And we got $5,000 from the Canadian Council on Social Development to come up with a report on poverty reduction in the NWT, part of a national series on poverty reduction from each jurisdiction. And we did that. We tend to participate in economic roundtables and post and pre-budget sessions with the finance minister and finance consultations from the Department of Finance for the GNWT. And all of this over a number of years pointed to the systemic issues that Arlene touched on. So I mean, and looking around what's happening in the rest of the country in places like Newfoundland, Labrador, and Quebec, where people were taking this anti-poverty or overall poverty reduction strategy approach. So that's how we ended up kind of taking on that as one of our projects and initiatives. And Alternatives North is an organization with a social justice kind of approach as opposed to the charity approach. So really looking at systemic change was a natural for us. So it's 2 years now we've been working on trying to get an anti-poverty strategy in the NWT. We started off with launching kind of that call in December 2009. It's hard to believe 2 years can go by so fast. So we gathered up a stack of research reports about poverty in the NWT and in Canada, a few that were national. and presented them as a gift, a Christmas gift to the members of the Legislative Assembly. We had, at that time, 14 other organizations that were sort of part of this informal alliance calling for a strategy. We're now up to 29, including 4 community governments, the Association of Communities, some unions, and frontline organizations from Yellowknife and elsewhere. In February of 2010, the Premier committed to doing a discussion paper. I think he made the point that it was too late. A year and a half or a year and 8 months was too late into a mandate to work on a major strategy. But we have yet to see that discussion paper, sadly. And then, I guess in May of 2010, we knew there was a commitment for a discussion paper, but we hadn't seen any action, no discussions with people about what might go into that discussion paper. So we thought we really needed to do something to make sure that things moved along. So we fundraised, and I must say that the credit for that goes to Julie Green from the YWCA, the fundraising expertise and really, Alternatives North isn't always that good at the major fundraising that required. We had, a year ago, a forum in this very room with over 80 people. And people from most of the communities in the NWT were here. And we talked about what an anti-poverty strategy might look like. And people were really committed to the whole idea of looking at those outstanding issues around housing, looking at food security, looking at the availability and affordability of early childhood development and care, looking at economic development that would actually make a difference in the lives of people who were born and raised and live here. So we came up with a number of recommendations from that group. Housing was a top priority. People wanted flexible programs to allow people to get out of debt, which, that being a priority is so telling about how difficult the system is treating people in terms of housing and working and how those two things conflict. We tried to, we came out with a report about that and tried to continue working with the folks within the GNWT who were heading up this poverty issue from their perspective. But it was, we haven't been successful in really maintaining an ongoing relationship with the bureaucracy working on pulling this forward. There is an internal working group that came to, I was asked to pull together a group of NGO folks in March of
this year.
Yeah, I guess it was just this year. After we came up with our report, the GNWT, we kept trying to find out what's going on with the discussion paper and that kind of thing. The GNWT decided to do some consultation. They named unilaterally a few external advisors that met once or twice, and then they had an internal working group, and they came to us in, I think, January or February, to a week before, or less, before a public consultation was to begin. And people weren't really keen on the process because they had been part of developing it. They felt that focus groups maybe should be facilitated by non-government employees, and various other inputs. So that's kind of, and I think there was an expectation when there was talk of an online survey that it might be advertised, those kinds of things. So we're still waiting to hear what that discussion paper is and are anxious to hear that. As things wound up towards the election and nothing was released and no results of the consultation, we put together a toolkit to try to encourage some public discussion at the community level. And we are currently evaluating the success of that. And I can't really tell you, but we tried to generate some community champions, and we were successful in getting 72% of the candidates running in the territorial election that happened in early October to commit in writing that they supported and would commit themselves, if elected, to work together with business, the civil society, oh, another word for the social economy, darn. Is that my 10 minutes? No, okay. To make that something they would do. So that ended up being all but one of our elected officials who've committed to that. So we're still working on the political will part of things. That we thought maybe we had some success with political will after that survey, but sadly, last week government priorities were announced, and although tucked into the 5 priorities that included economic development and housing, were things like early childhood care and addictions and mental health. An anti-poverty strategy wasn't one of the priorities, so we're still working on generating some political will around a broad-based approach. And I guess the kinds of reasons why that strategy, I mean, I know it's a bit vague, and it may not feel like it has concrete results, like changing a few of the issues that Arlene talked about. But I mean, I think what it does do is suggest that there be a lens that work happens through. Economic development's got to be part of a strategy, but we've seen in the 90s a lot of economic development that's really helped increase the employment in places like Newfoundland, and hasn't done a lot for some of our smaller communities up here. So measuring and reporting on progress is one of those key elements of a strategy. Having targets and timelines would be a key element. Looking at the costs of doing nothing, not just the costs of doing something. What are the costs of allowing poverty to continue to increase, as well as the inequality that is increasing? So looking at how poverty reduces life expectancy more than cancer. I think that's an interesting approach that would be helpful. So, and a strategy that involved everyone would be another key element. So that's where we're at, and I encourage people to look at www.alternativesnorth.ca for documents we produced. Thank you.